hate to be the one to say I told you so. I really do. But I did. I warn you that these tariffs on China would come back to bite us in the ass here in the United States. And one of the ways that that has happened is that people have lost their jobs. This is actually a big story, and I feel like it's not getting as much coverage as it should. But we are talking about people that work at factories here in this country. For some of them, it's the only job they've had. They've worked there for years, who just got laid off. There are a number of them. Let's go ahead and bring in this article here. Trump's tariffs driving thousands of layoffs at U.S. manufacturing plants. Before we get into the details, remember, I did remind you that the machines that are used in these manufacturing plants are not made here in the United States. We just don't produce and make enough here. We get a lot of products and materials from other countries, including China. And now it is biting us in the ass. So take a look at this, folks. I want you to see who has been laid off. Donald Trump's tariffs are already triggering thousands of layoffs in American manufacturing plants, mostly in the Midwest and the East. Companies are ejecting workers in the wake of Trump's purported plan to use the levies to bring manufacturing jobs back to the country. So again, his plan was to bring manufacturing back to the United States, which it has been slowly coming back over the years, but you can't bring it back if people are losing their jobs, right? Where do you see one of the states that was hit? It's interesting because it's a swing state. Let's start off with Volvo. The Volvo Group has announced it's cutting 800 workers at its Volvo and Mack truck plants in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland. Notice the swing state, Pennsylvania. Donald Trump won Pennsylvania this time around. He lost it in 2020 and he won Pennsylvania in 2016. That's just Volvo. We haven't gotten to the other ones yet. Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland. Those people no longer have a job. Heavy duty truck orders continue to be negatively affected by market uncertainty about freight rates and demand, possible regulatory changes, and the impact of tariffs. That's coming from the Volvo Group spokesperson. Pennsylvania Democratic State Senator Josh Siegel told ABC 27 that Trump's tariffs have been a devastating blow to the Lehigh Valley workers in a region where Mack remains one of the region's largest employers. Remember Lehigh? We were talking about that election night. That was one of the areas that Kamala Harris was hoping to capture. Workers are not just numbers. They are parents, neighbors, veterans, and skilled trade people who built America's backbone. Earlier this month, Stellantis, which manufactures a variety of vehicles, announced it was laying off 900 employees at plants in Michigan and Indiana, after the company paused production at some of its Canadian and Mexican assembly operations, according to a company memo obtained by CNN. So we also have Stellantis here, 900 people laid off. What did I tell you about where those auto parts come from? Mexico and Canada. More people losing their jobs. We're going to go on here. It says steelmaker Cleveland-Cliffs laid off more than 1,200 workers in Michigan and Minnesota in March. And General Motors announced earlier this month it would temporarily lay off 200 workers at a plant in Detroit. The last thing that Detroit needs is more layoffs. A city that was once thriving because of the auto industry, and had all that taken away because they decided to send jobs elsewhere. That's the last thing Detroit needs. And what do you mean by temporarily laid off? What are people supposed to do if they're laid off temporarily? Let me just sit around temporarily and hope that I get this job back sometime soon. California Democratic Representative Ro Khanna claimed earlier this month that more than 4,100 factory workers have been laid off across the U.S. as Trump tariffs rattled markets. Some analysts have estimated that ultimately 177,000 jobs in the U.S. would be cut after Trump announced his first rounds of tariffs in February. Goldman Sachs noted last week in a report that the president's tariffs would likely create about 100,000 manufacturing jobs, while also killing up to 500,000 jobs across all industries. I'm waiting for someone to tell me, how is this America first? You see, Donald Trump did the same thing that he did in 2016. He ran on a populist message and said that he was going to uplift, help the workers, the people who are down and out. But instead, he chose to help out billionaires. He chose to protect these companies like Amazon and Netflix and not make them pay any taxes. He ran the same playbook and he won off of it again, not helping the working class. Though Trump's tariffs paid for by American importers and their U.S. consumers will make foreign products less competitive with domestic products, it will nevertheless continue to be difficult to compete with nations like China with its basement pay rates for workers, experts have noted. New plants in the U.S. are also expected to be highly automated with a reduced need for workers. What did I tell you? When people talk about, oh, yeah, we got so much manufacturing, a lot of these things have been automated now. Gone are the days where people were at factories and they're working alongside this assembly line. A lot of these things have been automated where machines do that. You don't need to have people standing at an assembly line, passing an item on to the next person when you have machines that do it for you. And I've been warning people about automation. What are these people supposed to do? The people who were just laid off, what are they supposed to do? I also saw a report that said Whirlpool also just laid off hundreds of workers. What did these people do wrong? When people say pull yourself up by the bootstraps, what did these people do wrong? They didn't do anything wrong. They got up and went to work like they were supposed to, only to lose their damn jobs. This country is headed for economic disaster, and I'll continue to say this. Power to the People says the American dream is dead. Cause of death, strangulation by capitalism. Look at this. The majority of Americans can no longer afford an average house. Household income required to afford a medium price home in the United States. And you guys can see this here. This is insane. Look at how it used to be. 2018, or a little bit before 2018, 60,000. Look at where it's at now. Required income over $119,000. Median household income over $83,000. Now, I've been warning people that this is not sustainable. I told you they really want you to own nothing. Now, all these factory workers just lost their jobs. What the hell are they supposed to do? Where are they supposed to go get work? So you see, the Midwest is taking another hit again. Donald Trump is losing this trade war with China. And you're going to see him kind of admit to that because he's backing down on some of his tariffs for China, not all, some of them. But when you see all the things that have been targeted towards the working class, I want to remind you who they don't want to target. Listen to this here. Shout out to Case Study QB. I want you to hear what Donald Trump says when he is asked about taxing millionaires. Check this out.
Well, President Trump is rejecting the idea of raising taxes on millionaires because he fears they would leave the country.
support a millionaire tax?
I think it would be very disruptive because a lot of the millionaires would leave the country. You know, the old days, they left states. They go from one state to the other. Now with transportation so quick and so easy, they leave countries. You'll lose a lot of money if you do that. That would, and other countries that have done it have lost a lot of people. They lose their wealthy people. That would be bad because the wealthy people pay the tax. Okay.
Ali Vitale, first of all, this was an issue that was gaining some steam. Explain it. Yeah.
It was gaining some steam, though branding is everything, especially with Trump. And so when you ask him about the idea of a millionaire tax or a billionaire tax, yeah, I'm not exactly shocked that he would give the answer that he gave. But the way that this was being talked about on Capitol Hill was allowing top earners' tax rate to slightly tick up as a method that could have potentially helped to pay for the other tax cuts that they are trying to do, amid larger concerns on Capitol Hill, especially from House conservatives, that there's not enough being done to tackle the issue of the national debt. Because remember, as they come back to town next week, they're trying to pick apart all of these various pieces of the Trump agenda as part of one big budget push. We talk about it as one big, beautiful bill. But within that, not only are they trying to put more money towards immigration and enforcement, but they're also trying to do things like raising the debt ceiling, hiking it by trillions of dollars, also doing these tax cuts, even though they're trying to use a procedural sleight of hand that would basically say, oh, we're raising tax cuts, we're keeping the tax cuts, making them permanent and doing it somehow for $0. Conservatives on Capitol Hill, while that might politically sound good, also don't buy into that. And so this could have been a way for them to offset the idea of spending, but now you're seeing the president roll it back. I think the conversation that you guys were having earlier about Trump being policy agnostic has certainly been true since 2015 when I started covering him and many of us started covering him. And so not surprising that he would toggle on this. We could see it toggle back, who knows? But the larger point here to the conversation that we've been having as we track the poll numbers, and I agree they're snapshots, is Democrats have long said, just wait for Trump to overplay his hand. And that is potentially what we're going to see them seize on now, especially with the economy.
So it's really interesting that Morning Joe all of a sudden cares about taxing millionaires because they didn't when Biden was in office. Let's just keep it real. But I played that clip because I want to bring something to your attention, right? So this idea we can't tax them more because they'll leave the country. First of all, we passed a millionaire tax here in Massachusetts, and it seems to be working pretty well. We passed a millionaire tax here so that we could make sure that kids would be fed at school, so we can feed the kids, right? So kids didn't have to worry about, paying for lunch, etc. Like, this is just ridiculous. In a country as wealthy as the United States, there's no reason for this. No reason at all. There are countries that are less wealthy than the US who do the same thing. The kids don't have to pay for lunch. They go to school and they're fed. And surprisingly, they get better food, more quality food. So they don't want to tax the millionaires, but they have no problem taxing you. They don't want to make the billionaires pay their fair share, but they have no problem draining everything out of you that they can. All these people that just lost their jobs, what are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to do? Isn't this supposed to be the bat? Everybody says, oh, don't worry about those college jobs. Go get a job at a factory. Go work in manufacturing. Go get a blue collar job. What happens when they have layoffs and you have no job now? Had it not been for the tariffs, these people would still have their jobs. That's the problem. Now he's starting to back away, right? He's starting to back away from these tariffs with China, but not completely. He is going to reduce them. I want to play this clip here in just a second. He wants to reduce the tariffs with China. So that's good. But the bad part is those people who just lost their jobs, this doesn't change anything for them. It's already too late. The job is gone. But they don't want to make the millionaires and the billionaires pay their fair share. Get out of here. Listen to this.
President Trump setting the stage for a trade deal with China as the administration says they could scale back on some of the new tariffs soon.
Hurry. Mark Meredith is at the White House with details. Mark, have the conversations with China actually started? Because it sounds like things are heading that way.
Steve Inslee and Brian, good morning, friends. Well, Steve, the White House was asked yesterday whether or not the president's engaged in a one-on-one talk with President Xi of China, and the White House not willing to go on the record with that, an indication that these conversations are still not happening at the most senior levels. Either way, all three major U.S. stock indexes are set to open sharply higher today, given some of the news the president and Treasury Secretary made within the last 24 hours, suggesting that the trade war won't last forever. As you all three know, there's been a major sell-off on Wall Street ever since the trade war began.
We're doing fine with China. We're doing fine with I think almost every country. Everybody wants to have involvement with the United States. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. We were talking about fentanyl where, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high. It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero.
So did you hear what he said? It's going to come down. He's going to reduce it, but it's not going to be zero. So he's still going to have some tariffs on China. Look, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Donald Trump has lost this trade war with China, as I predicted would happen. You cannot throw all these tariffs on a country where we get a lot of materials and products from. You just can't. And it's one thing to say, I want those jobs here. I want manufacturing more so here in the United States. You work on building that before you jeopardize people's jobs. And that's exactly what has happened. There are a number of people, and we'll show you the approval rating, a number of people that supported Donald Trump that are not happy. His approval rating is not good. And it's over this issue, the economy.
As Fox Business has learned, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also said something similar to investors this week, that he expects a de-escalation with China in the near future. 2 weeks ago, the White House also pushed pause on imposing sweeping tariffs on almost every U.S. trading partner. It allowed this pause to allow negotiations to continue. So far, though, no new trade deals have been signed, and the White House says stay tuned.
I spoke to our entire trade team this morning. There is a lot of progress being made. We now have 18 proposals on paper that have been brought to the trade team. Again, these are proposals on paper that countries have proposed to the Trump administration and to our government.
The other reason we're seeing so much green on Wall Street before the opening bell is the president made the strong suggestion again that he has no plans to fire the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Just this week, Trump suggested that Powell should have to leave his post as Federal Reserve Chairman. His post isn't up until May of next year. And so
imagine bringing up General Powell when people just lost their jobs, right? So we're talking about taking the good with the bad. The good is that they're going to decrease those tariffs on China. The bad is that it's already too late for the people, the factory workers that just lost their jobs. And Donald Trump's approval rating is not doing well. The first 100 days of President Trump's second term. Check out these numbers, folks. Trump receives his best marks on border security as a 55% majority approves. That's the only issue where his ratings are in positive territory. On immigration, a record high of 47% approve of Trump, 48% disapprove, while a new low of 38% approve on the economy, 56% disapprove. This is bad. This is not where he was end of January, early February. We went over those approval numbers specifically on the economy. This is not good, especially considering his term just started. It's not like he's been a year end. So just keep that in mind. Not good. His worst ratings are on inflation. 33% approve, 59% disapprove. 59%, followed by tariffs, 33% to 58%. Foreign policy, 40% to 54%. Taxes, 38% to 53%. Remember, the latter percentage is disapprove. You guys see a trend here? More disapprove with the tariffs, more disapprove with foreign policy, more disapprove with taxes, and even the guns, more disapprove with guns, 41% to 44%, although that is closer when you compare it to the other issues. But listen up here, folks. This is not good for Donald Trump. Not good. Donald Trump is running into some of the same issues that Joe Biden ran into on the economy. We now have two presidents in a row with failed economies. Now, Donald Trump just took office, so people said he still has time. But I want to remind you again, the percentage on the tariffs, 58% disapprove. That was his decision. That was not something that was left over from the Biden administration. That was a decision that he made. And more people are speaking out. More people are speaking out. So the good is that he's going to decrease the tariffs with China. But the bad is that it doesn't help those people who already lost their jobs. Like, this is bad. And I have to tell you guys, like, I knew Trump wouldn't be good, but this is like really, 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 really bad. His first term, the one thing that he tended to have positive remarks on was the economy. It was the one reason why I said that had it not been for the pandemic, I believed he would have won re-election because of the economy, where we were economically. But now he doesn't even have that. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.